What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. We got an episode of Let's Talk Dynasty today. We are trying to wrap up these divisional or fantasy football previews for you guys. So today we're going to be doing AFC West, NFC West, and we got our co-host MFGDs in the building. So let's bring them right in. Let's talk some fantasy football, man. War, how you doing, man?
I'm all right. I'll try to change this color because I said, "Oh no, do I got Vikings purple up here? Let me get this out of here."
Oh, you're good, man.
This gotta go.
I gotta apologize to you, to be honest, because I was sitting here. My wife just DoorDashed some milkshakes and stuff. I'm kicking it, and then you're like, "Are you ready to go?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, yes, I am ready to go." I just gotta upload all the graphics into here. So I was trying to do it in the intro and stuff, but there's really two things that I want to talk to you about before we get into these divisional previews, and we'll keep it short and sweet. We won't go on a monologue like we did last time, but it will buy me some extra time. That may be why I'm doing it. But two big pieces of news today, really. The first one, it's not news from today, but it's the Jonathan Taylor saga, and it's continuing to happen. So you actually sent us a tweet that said that there's 6 teams in the hunt right now. So if you're not familiar, the Colts gave him the option to seek a trade partner, and there's 6 teams in the hunt. So what are your thoughts on this, and who do you think could be some of these teams?
Miami is one for sure. Miami is definitely one of them. I think the Patriots are out of the running. Just the kind of usual suspects of the teams that were in on Dalvin that kind of got left empty-handed. I mean, it just seems like Miami is almost the most likely one. I think we have some dark horses too.
Yeah, I mean, I was on a mock draft stream a few nights ago, and it was right after the news broke. And there were some people in the chat, and they were asking me, what my opinion was on the situation and who did I think was going to happen. And they were actually asking too, like, who do we think is going to end up being the starting running back for the Colts when this happens? Because it seems like it's a matter of when, not if, right? Like it seems like he's really going to be gone. And so, I think just right away, and this is before the betting lines came out, but right away I thought it was Miami. Um, Kind of the reasoning behind that is, like you said, they've been in on running backs already this offseason. And then I was thinking of like who would be one of these suspects that would be trading for Jonathan Taylor, and you have to be a contender in the NFL. You have to feel like you're a contender because you're not going to trade for a running back and then pay him a contract, because that's what's coming with the Jonathan Taylor trade, right? Like when you trade for him, you have to give him the extension that he was seeking out of Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So you have to have cap space. You have to be a contender. You have to be willing to give that contract. And there's not a lot of teams that are probably able to check all of those boxes. And then also one that's, goes without saying, you have to kind of have a need at the position as well. Like there's teams that could fit that mold. Like, for example, the Cincinnati Bengals could fit that mold, but why would you pay Jonathan Taylor when you have Joe Mixon under contract for 2 seasons? And so it's just like, I think Miami's the team. If it's gonna be the team, it's gonna be Miami.
All right, we could just briefly just run through each division, okay? Now I'm gonna play Andrew, and I'm gonna play a game with you. I'm
All
gonna
right.
name a team from a division, and you'll tell me if you think that Jonathan Taylor is an option for them. Okay,
Okay.
Denver Broncos,
I don't. I don't think so.
Las Vegas Raiders,
Uh, it's going to be interesting because if Josh Jacobs doesn't sign that tag, then all of a sudden they do need a running back. But I don't feel like they're a contender, so they weren't willing to pay Jacobs. They're probably not willing to pay Taylor.
LA Chargers,
No,
Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm not familiar with what their cap situation is. What is the cap situation there? Do they have enough?
You know what? I don't know if they have enough, but there are a lot of people who follow the NFL that are mentioning the Chiefs as an option. You know, the NFL,
Yeah.
the cap, the salary cap is fictional anyway. You can
Yeah.
easily find a way to get JT onto your roster if you want to. So it really just comes to that. Do they want JT to be on the roster?
Yeah. I mean, um, it'd probably be nice, right? Like it'd be nice. The only thing I feel like everybody wants somebody to go to everybody wants the running back that plays for the Chiefs, and then it's funny that they get a guy that um, actually performed well, Isaiah Pacheco, and now everybody wants him gone for something else. So it's funny that everybody's been waiting for this, and now that they have a guy who actually did well, they want him out of there. So it's
Yeah.
I don't know, it's interesting to see.
I,
And you've been a
honestly,
Pacheco guy.
I know I have sold them, but I have. I even think that the Minnesota Vikings are a viable option for JT.
I will say, as a fan of the Vikings, I I don't know how I feel about it. Because I might be one of those guys, but it's like I just don't believe in paying the running back the money. I just don't. We've seen enough teams be successful without paying the running back money, and so it's like, do I want the Vikings to be that team that pays him? Would it be awesome to have Jonathan Taylor? Hell yeah, it would be. I mean, think of an offense with T.J. Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, Jonathan Taylor. It would be electric. But we still need to pay JJ. We still need to pay Hawkinson, and then you trade for Taylor, and then you have to pay him. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I just think it'll be a good fit. I mean, I don't think there's a strong belief in Madison, and you
They
know,
they do have the sixth highest odds on DraftKings. I did see that they're in the top six, but the number one odds is Miami. That's the number one odds right now.
Are the Chiefs in the top six?
Yes. Yep.
Who are the other three teams?
Let me pull it up real quick. And while I'm pulling it up, uh, I want to actually we can finish this off before because it would go into another topic. But let me pull up these teams real quick. Uh, where is it? Um, Futures. Sorry, you caught me off guard with some data I didn't have. I usually stay on top of it. Um, I'm not finding it. I'll find it on Twitter. But 2 more seconds. Jonathan Taylor, DraftKings. Boom. Minnesota Vikings have the sixth highest odds to land Jonathan Taylor. The other teams are number one, the Miami Dolphins. Number two, the Chicago Bears. Number three, the Baltimore Ravens. Denver Broncos. Number four, Dallas Cowboys. Number five, um, Commanders. Six. I guess there's a bunch of teams tied, so they're saying that Vikings have the sixth highest odds, but they're like 10th on the list. Um, Buccaneers, Bills, Vikings, Panthers, Eagles, Bengals, Saints, Chiefs. So Chiefs are actually at the bottom of that.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty interesting.
Plus 4,000. Plus
I'm
4,000.
surprised the Bears are number two.
So how would you feel if he goes to the Bears?
I got Roshan Johnson, so
Yeah.
in real life I feel good about a fantasy, not so much.
Fair. Well, then my other piece of news that I wanted to talk about too is Trey Lance. He is now going. They excused him from practice today. He's now going to be seeking a trade because sounds like Sam Darnold beat him for the QB2 spot. It is Brock Purdy's team. Darnold will be the backup, and Trey Lance is now looking for a new home. So, how do you feel about this? And where do you think he goes?
I actually have a little bit of late breaking news
Okay.
for this news topic. So apparently, like right before we came on, something came out according to KNBR out there in San Francisco, I suppose. 49ers head coach really hoping Trey remains an option on the team heading into next season. What the hell are they doing? What the hell are they doing over there? He
It's
want
you know what it is, man. It's they saw that in that NFC Championship game, they needed that third quarterback. They changed the goddamn rules to help the Niners now, so they can roster three quarterbacks. Um, and so he wants Trey to be QB3 because Trey is QB3 is better than Josh Johnson or whoever the hell else you're gonna go find as QB3. And if they get into a situation again where Brock Purdy and his UCL and Sam Darnold is Sam Darnold, you can turn and go, okay, Trey, sorry we haven't believed in you for 2.5 years now at this point. Do you want to try it again? That's what they want to be able to do.
I imagine that by now, Trey's agent are like, nah, we ain't with that. We don't want that.
If I'm Trey Lance, I'm like, fuck it, I'm out. Like, get me somewhere else. I want to go play somewhere else. I don't give a damn if I go somewhere else and I'm the backup. Like, I just want somewhere else where there's at least a chance of them believing in me because you guys have had multiple opportunities to kind of hand me the reins and let me be the guy, and you've went with somebody else every time that you've given me a chance. And maybe that's part of his fault, maybe it's not. I don't know. You guys can, debate that between yourselves, but um I think the reality is that, like, it's not going to happen in San Francisco. So
No.
so let's go to greener pastures and let's figure it out somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the only option I can see for him at this point. Even if they were to like, okay, let's keep Trey on the roster, at this point, his confidence has to be shot, or at
It's
least
got to
his
be
faith in the organization has to be shaken to
it's got to be
where
rock bottom.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, he needs a fresh start already, in my
It's
opinion.
bad, man. And I really do think, and you know, I've been a Trey Lance truther in the past, and I've come to terms with that earlier this year when I was telling you guys like it's over. This thing isn't going to happen here in San Francisco. Um, but I do think they did him kind of dirty, man. Like I really do think they did him dirty. I just don't know why you draft a developmental prospect top 3 and then you don't want to wait to develop him. It doesn't make sense. Why do you draft a developmental prospect and then you don't let him develop? You want him to win right away. It doesn't make sense. What do you it just and then they blame him and I don't know, man. It's just I think they did him dirty.
Yeah, they did. They did. I mean, this could all been corrected had they just
Drafted
chosen
Justin
Justin
Fields.
Fields. Yeah, I mean, this would have just saved everything. But you know,
Well, and you know what? Based on my evaluation, they probably would have been drafting between if I was the ones making the picks because you know I was very high on Justin. So I would have had T Log go to the Jags. I would have had Justin Fields go to the Jets, and then it would have been them picking between Zach Wilson and Trey. So I guess they could have picked their poison between those two, but
yeah,
um I guess at this point would you have rather had Zach?
no.
I
I
think
would rather.
Shanahan would rather have Zach.
I mean, you sure he wouldn't have rather had Mac?
I don't know, man. Is that I mean that's where we're at, right? Mac is the third best quarterback in this class, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Crazy, crazy times. Anyways, we can talk about the Niners later because they are on today's show. Like I said, we're going to be talking AFC West, NFC West. Um, and this is going to be a lot better of a show than last time because there's a lot better teams, a lot better fantasy options. I think last time was that was about as bad as it was going to get. So
It was
if
a
you missed
drag.
that one, there was AFC, NFC Souths. It was bad, man. But I will say the bottom teams in these divisions are still bottom teams. And so while we're talking about that, let's talk about the bottom team in the AFC West, and that's going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. They are projected to win a total of 6.5 games here, War. Last season, uh, can't even remember their record. I'm gonna pull it up right now. This is me lacking, man. I told you I was too busy sipping milkshakes over here and wasn't ready. Um, but they are projected to win 6.5 games. And so as I pull this up, War, how do you feel like uh, that line is for them? Do you think it's too high? Do you think it's too low? I mean, we have a new quarterback in Las Vegas. Jimmy Garoppolo is now the starter. Obviously, Derek Carr has gone somewhere else. And yeah, coming off of a season last year where they were 6-11, now it's 6.5.
I think that that record is right on the money. I mean, I could see them winning 6 or 7 wins. I definitely don't see much more than that, but I kind of don't see much less than the 6 wins. If they won 5 games, that would be super bad. 6 or 7 though sounds about right to me.
Yeah, is there a chance? Is there a chance that this team hops into this Caleb Williams hunt?
Hmm. I think that's going to be a tough competition for that particular team to win. I think there's really going to be some teams gunning for Caleb. I think the Raiders roster is a little bit too good for them to actually be involved in the Caleb Williams hunt.
Yeah, I just know so far, and we've only reviewed half of the NFL up to this point. After today, we'll be 3/4 of the way done. But 6.5 seems to be the bottom of the barrels for the most part. I mean, I think we had a 5.5 win team, but 6.5, it's like that 4.5, 5.5, 6.5. That's kind of where the bottoms are, and
Yeah,
so it's interesting to see. I think it's I don't know, man. This is a team that I think is it's hard for me to judge them. Because I feel like they are kind of in a transition period as well. I mean, we talked about the Tennessee Titans being a team that was in transition, that was competitive, that then, you know, couldn't accept a rebuild, and now we're with the Raiders, but it's like they were never really competitive, and I don't know if they're rebuilding either. It's weird to see, but they do have some good young guys that I do like on the roster. But um, we just spoke about Caleb Williams. Did you see what he said today?
No, what do you say? Fill me in.
He said that he still doesn't know whether or not he's going to go back and play his senior year of college, and that's a decision that he'll make at the end of the season when the time is right. But
He's coming out. I'm not even worried
it's
about.
leverage.
Yeah, I'm not even worried about all that
Yeah.
stuff.
But it's
He's
leverage,
coming
man.
out.
He says, I think if the team that lands number one is a team that he doesn't want to play for, he'll threaten it, and maybe a team trades back, or maybe they give him some incentives. I don't know. We've seen it happen now with the NIL. But for these Las Vegas Raiders, as always, we do show the players for fantasy football being drafted in the top 200. And per your request, War, I have added their positional rank next to the names just for you. So we do have Devontae Adams, the first Raider being drafted off of the board. He has an ADP of 30.4, good for wide receiver 9. Josh Jacobs off the board as RB11 with an ADP of 50.7. Jimmy Garoppolo off the board, quarterback 31, ADP is 79.1. Jacoby Myers, wide receiver 57, ADP of 146.8. And then Zamir White, RB 57, ADP of 184.6. So just five guys, man, being drafted in the top 200. I mean, this is a theme that we see with some of these lower ranked teams projected to win less games. There's less fantasy options. So, how do you feel about Adams, Jacobs, Jimmy, Jacoby, and Zamir?
Oh man, it's a lot of trash on that list. A lot of trash. I was more upset that Aiden O'Connell wasn't on that list. I,
Yeah, you
I'll get
like him?
I'll get to that in a second.
All right.
I think those are pretty fair rankings. Am I surprised that Jimmy is basically the second to worst quarterback in NFL? I think that's kind of wild,
It is.
but but yeah. So I mean, I guess I'll say I disagree with that. I don't know who exactly is above him.
Let's see. There's a lot of guys above him. I mean, obviously being 31 off or 31st off the board. Did I just say 30 once? What the fuck? Um, 31st off the board, but let me pull this up because we have the Superflex ADP right here. Just a couple guys above him are Ryan Tannehill, Desmond Ritter, Mac Jones, Sam Howell, CJ Stroud, Kyler Murray, Bryce Young, Brock Purdy, Kenny Pickett, Jordan Love. I mean, that's kind of the guys above him.
Oh yeah, man. Oh man, yeah. I probably will put those guys above him. I'll be honest.
It's weird, right? Because you're like, that
Yeah,
feels low for Jimmy G, but then you hear the guys above him and you're like, yeah, I would take them over Jimmy.
I mean, I think that's a testament to how rich the quarterback position is in today's NFL. I
Yeah.
mean, there was a time where a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo would have been middle of the pack, right?
Or
Like
was
a guy,
getting paid like top dollars to come to San Francisco.
yeah, like middle of the pack and one of those guys that you can win the Super Bowl with them if everything else is right. But now
Mm-hmm.
look at him fantasy wise, the second to last quarterback. Who's number 32?
Baker.
Okay, yep. Yep.
So
Yeah.
it is. I mean, it is what it is. But I do want to talk about Devontae because he's the first guy being drafted. He is being drafted as wide receiver 9 overall. And so how do you feel about that ranking? Because last year, Devontae Adams had a hell of a season. Now I understand he was playing with Derek Carr, and it wasn't Jimmy Garoppolo, but he did average 19.7 fantasy points per game, which was number 5 overall in the NFL. He had 180 targets for 1,500 yards, and had 2,130 air yards on the season. Um, Now being valued as a low end wide receiver 1.
Yeah. I mean, that comes with swapping Derek Carr for Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, what was he ranked last year? Like top five?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't
Yes.
know what the
I
ADP
mean,
was last year, but I assume because he's coming off of a number one and a number two performance in 2020 and 2022. I mean,
yeah.
2021. So probably was top five.
Yes. I mean, it makes sense for him to fall down a little bit with Jimmy Garoppolo there because, first of all, we don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo can stay healthy. So it might be the Aiden O'Connell show at any time this season. So, and honestly, I think that's going to end up being what's best. I already know how the Raiders season is going to play out. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I know how their season's going to play out. Jimmy's going to get hurt. Aiden O'Connell's going to steal the show. Is going to be his team going forward. Team's going to do too good to get Caleb, and that's just the way of life for the Raiders.
And then they'll be either going back to the Jimmy Garoppolo well, or they will be signing a Taylor Heineke.
Yeah.
Um, but
I take it you don't like Aiden O'Connell.
I mean, Aiden O'Connell's fine. I want to see more. I want to see more. I don't put too much weight into the preseason. I just don't put too much into it. I mean, I what I like to see is good draft capital. Obviously, Aiden O'Connell didn't get that. Obviously, there's exceptions to that as well. Um, but let's see you do it in a regular season game when that time comes. Let's see you do it in a regular
Yeah.
season game because I liked Sam Howell as a rookie. Sam Howell didn't get the draft capital, but when the time came and he was playing at the end of the season last year, he looked good. He looked fine. I mean, it's not like he looked like a superstar, but he looked fine. And now we're going to get to see a full season of Sam Howell for the most part. I mean, as long as he plays good, we'll see a full season. If he plays bad, then writing's on the wall, and they'll bring in Jacoby Brissett. But yeah, I mean, other than those two, though, I don't feel like we really need to talk about Jacoby Myers. I don't feel like we really need to talk about Zamir White. Zamir's a handcuff. But let's talk Josh Jacobs because Josh Jacobs hasn't signed that franchise tender. I'd already talked to you kind of in the beginning of the show when you brought up the Raiders, and I said, well, what's going to happen with Josh Jacobs? Um, News is that he's going to report, still unsigned, but he's going to report to the Raiders before week one. Does he sign this franchise tender, or is this looking like it's going to get messy?
He better sign it if he knows what's good for him. When you're a running back, it could end at any time. You don't know where it's going to come from, but it can get you at any time, and he needs to get his money. He needs to get
Yeah.
his money, whether he likes the situation or not. Like I said, I think I told you earlier this offseason, way earlier, that I could see a falling back to earth for Josh Jacobs. Remember,
Mm-hmm.
said that a while ago. So if I still believe in that, and he didn't take the money, imagine what he's going to get offered after the season. So
Right.
I think
Yeah.
I think for running backs, I feel like your mindset with it now is year to year money. That's just how you have to think because there may not be a next year. Kareem Hunt still doesn't have a job. Like,
Yeah, and he's interviewed with 3 or 4 teams in the last couple weeks and left every place that he went to without a contract. So,
I don't know what he's looking for. I feel like it's been because of him that he hasn't signed a contract. So maybe he has
well,
unrealistic expectations.
Well, the news was that the Colts offered him a contract and his agent said, "Don't sign because there's other teams that want to interview you and bring you in. Don't sign. Let's go see what else everyone else is offering first." And it's like you left all those places without a contract. So like and then the Colts went and signed Kenyon Drake. So like now that they signed Kenyon Drake, they're like, we don't need Kareem."
Yeah,
And
I don't think
eh,
Kenyon Drake though he's not a guy that will keep you from signing Kareem Hunt, like
I
in
don't
my
think so
opinion.
either. I mean, I don't think he makes the roster to be
Especially
honest, but
especially if JT gets traded, then it's kind of just going to be like, okay, now it's going to be even more room to bring in a Kareem Hunt. So
yeah, for sure. But I think the Jacob situation is still something to monitor. I mean, if I were to put my worry level on like a scale of 1 to 10 with Josh Jacobs, I think right now I'm sitting at like a 3. Um, enough that I'm like I'm looking at it, but I'm not making any crazy value adjustments or not any rankings adjustments to Josh Jacobs. It's just, I think it's still wait and see. We have a few more weeks until the first game. Let's see if he signs this tender in those couple weeks.
Yeah, yeah, that's all. All we can do is wait and see for that.
Yep. And so let's talk about the third place team in this division, and it's going to be the new look Denver Broncos. They have a projected win total of 8.5 wins. This is a team that has new head coach Sean Payton in the building. They got rid of the Hackett that was in town, and now a team, coming off of a 5-win season in 2022, expected to take a step forward, at least according to the sports books. How do you feel about the 8.5 win total, and how do you feel about this team?
Meh,
Meh.
meh. I could see them winning less than 8 games, to be perfectly honest.
I don't think they go over the 8.5.
Yeah, I believe. Okay, so I believe in Sean Payton as a head coach. I believe in Sean Payton. I just think the man who they once wanted to cook now is cooked in Russell Wilson. I think he sucks. I think they should have done more for the backup quarterback position. Um, but they traded away everything, didn't they? So it's going to be a tough road to hoe for Sean Payton.
It's
Yeah,
going to be
I can see
interesting.
them. I can see them winning exactly 8 games, 8.5.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think they're going to win 9. And if you're going to take the over, they have to win 9. I don't think they do it. But I will say, you're kind of going with the cooked Russell Wilson narrative. I do think we see a little bit of a bounce back, at least for fantasy football purposes. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. I don't think Russell Wilson is going to be a top 10 fantasy football quarterback. I think those days are gone. But I do think that where he finished last year, which was absurdly low, is not going to be what happens this year. I could see him finishing in that Kirk Cousins range. He could finish in that Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff range. And if he does, then I think you're happy with where you're drafting him. But I, before we talk about the ADP, because I said that you're going to be happy where you draft him, let's talk about some of the teams, because I just wanted to look at the record. And we know the division they play in. They got to play the Chargers. They got to play the Kansas City Chiefs. They got to play the Raiders. And the other teams that they're playing this year outside of the division are going to be the Dolphins, tough team to beat. The Jets, probably a tough team to beat. They got to play the Bears. They got to play the Packers. They got to
Tough
play the
team to beat.
Vikings. They got to play the whole NFC North. They got to play the Browns. Probably going to be a decent team this year. They got to play the Bills. Going to be a decent team this year. They got to play. I mean, there's a lot of teams on here, man, that are going to be decent teams. And to find 9 wins, I don't see them. I just don't see them. So
Me either.
I think if I was betting this, I'd be betting the under for sure. But I said you'd be happy with where you're going to draft Russell Wilson, and he is the first guy coming off the board for the Broncos with this underdog superflex ADP. He's being drafted in the 3rd round, or ADP of 32.2, and that's Russell Wilson off the board as QB 18. Jerry Jeudy's coming off the board as wide receiver 20, ADP of 61.8. Javonte Williams, your guy, running back 25, coming off the board, ADP 98.8. Cortland Sutton, wide receiver 48, coming off the board, ADP 125.4. Then we have some backups, right? So Samaje Perine, RB 37, Greg Dulcich, to be seen really what the role is, tight end 11, and then Marvin Mims finds his way in there probably because of the injury to Tim Patrick, wide receiver 66. How do you feel about this team? It does seem like they have a good amount of fantasy football options. It's just how many of these guys are you wanting on your rosters this year?
I'll take Russell as my. I see Judy as a flex piece. I see Russell as a quarterback 3. But let me tell you something. Let me tell you something right now.
Here.
Javonte Williams, running back 25. You
Yep.
know all
Here
that
you go.
tells
I got the Broncos lights on for you.
you know all that tells me, Andrew,
What up?
is that somebody made 24 fucking mistakes because
Oh my
Javante
god.
Javante Williams is not running back 25. Maybe if you took the 2 off, it'll be something closer to that. Javante will prove the doubters wrong. They lucky I got my wisdom tooth pulled on Monday, or I'll be screaming even louder right now. Do not disrespect Mr. Javante Williams, the man
Uh,
who has the plan. Let's ride.
let's ride for sure, I guess. I mean, look, dude, we've been on this show multiple weeks on occasion now where you have pumped up Javante Williams. I think I'd be safe to consider him one of your guys this year. Like if you watch the Fantasy Footballers podcast, every year they do a show where they call it the My Guys, and they pick like 3 guys in fantasy football that they're just like, I have to get this guy on my roster. I think Javante's one of your guys this year,
He's
man.
one of my guys, man. The man himself, Javante Williams. You gotta say his
I
name like that because when he cutting through the fenders, he's smooth. You
I
gotta say
just
it
I
like that.
still am nervous about the knee, bro. I'm still nervous about it. But
You know what? You gotta just forget about the knee, man. You gotta forget about it.
live life like bliss, right? If you just
Yeah.
turn a blind eye,
Turn a blind eye to the knee, man. The knee
there
don't
you go.
exist. It
Well,
go, it go thigh to calf. Forget about the knee. Thigh to calf. Forget about it.
I'm
Forget
sure a lot of running backs would like that to be true, because that would save a lot of careers. Todd Gurley would still be the RB1 if that was true. Um,
it.
but I do want to talk about this because, like you said, Russell Wilson QB 18. I think it's a pretty good value on Russ. I think he should outperform that slightly. If I was actually looking, I have it right here. Let me open up these redraft rankings that I have right here that you had me expose myself last week. And actually, you know what? In my rankings, I have him as QB 18. So there you go. I mean, I got him right where he's at. And I just maybe that's why it doesn't feel bad to me because it just feels right. But then I think Jerry Judy being drafted. Sorry, I got to keep pulling it up. Jerry Judy drafted as wide receiver 20. Okay, fine with me. Javante, I honestly, as much as I hate to say this to your face, War, I think it could be a value at 25 if he is healthy. It is a value if he is healthy. I think Cortland Sutton could be a value at wide receiver 48. I know I've gotten in and out of this trap of Cortland Sutton where I've liked Cortland Sutton and then he's let me down and then I liked him again and then he let me down, and I think I'm starting to talk myself into Cortland Sutton again for the 3rd year, and I don't know if he's going to let me down, but odds are he probably will.
Something stinks. What is it? It's Cortland Sutton. He stinks. Like, I don't trust
It's
guys like Cortland. So you burn me, then we done.
Hey
We
man, I
done. Me
got
and Cortland Sutton, we done. He's the opposite of Javante. That list, look, pull up that Broncos list one more time. Pull it up one more time.
one more time if you haven't seen it.
This after Javante, the list just goes blank for me. Because I don't
You don't
care
like
about the list.
Dulcich?
I don't care about him. I don't know him. I don't care about him. He's not better than Cole Komet. Okay? So I don't know about him. The only guy I see on that list after Javante is P. Ryan. You want to know why? Because Javante
Handcuff.
needs somebody to hold his bags. And that person is Samaje P. Ryan. Yes,
Fair
sir.
enough. I think I mean if you want this propaganda, we've had it. Cortland Sutton took on the task from new head coach Sean Payton to study Michael Thomas game film back when Michael Thomas was tearing the league apart. So Cortland Sutton is going to fall into that Michael Thomas role, is what we're hearing.
Well, you know what, Andrew? A lot of people studied Michael Jordan's game tapes while he was tearing the league apart. And the only person that came close to mimicking it is Kobe Bryant. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant's birthday, baby.
Happy birthday, Kobe Bryant. Um, But yeah, man, that is the Denver Broncos for you. Um, I nothing crazy there, I will say.
It's a
Now,
nice little team of flexes.
yeah, and a team that probably will not get over that 8.5 wins. So it doesn't seem like you or I are high on this team at all. But you do have a Javonte Williams, my guy, thing going on. But let's talk about these Los Angeles Chargers here. They're projected to win 9.5 games this year. They're coming off of a season in 2022 where they won 10 games with a Justin Herbert who had fractured ribs and a torn labrum. Apparently, both of those are fixed now. They added Quentin Johnston to the roster. Uh, Healthy Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Eckler. The Austin Eckler trade rumors that were happening once this offseason, they're no more. He will be there week one. He'll be ready to go. And how do you feel about this team, man?
You know, a lot of people. Okay, I was watching something the other day. I can't remember what. They were saying that the Chargers are doomed to fail this season, even if Justin Herbert goes off. I disagree, man. I think this could be a 10-win team. I understand they have horrible coaching. I understand. But, and I also understand this defense may be pretty bad. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
It's middle of the pack.
Middle of the pack. So if you have an elite QB, and I would dare say elite offense, a
Yeah.
middle
Oh,
of the
this is
pack
this is one of
defense.
those offenses, man.
Yeah, a middle of the pack defense. You very well should be able to win 10 games. The coach isn't out there playing the game, ladies and gentlemen. So as doofisified, that's a word I just made up just for him. That's just for you. Doofisified as their coach may be, you still got an elite QB, or who I would believe is elite. I'm going off of the knowledge and words of Mr. Andrew here. He's elite QB, middle of the pack defense, top tier offense. They should win 10 games. I
I
wouldn't
think
trust
so
them to
too.
win many more than that. I say they will max out at 10 games, and I think that's me being fair with it.
Yeah, I mean, tough, man. I'm getting really dangerous with my love for Justin Herbert this season. I mean, we're talking about and this is nothing new, War. You've known me long enough. You know that Justin's always he's kind of been one of those guys that I've just adopted. And
He's one of your guys.
yeah, I mean, for my guys this year, this might be the guy. This is my Javante is Justin Herbert. And I'm looking at the roster and I'm thinking like the Vikings last year, and I hate to bring up the Vikings, but I watch so much Vikings football that it's hard for me not to make this comparison. But you talked about a team that had a top offense and a bad defense, and that was the Minnesota Vikings. They had a horrific defense and a good offense, and they won more than 10 games. And now you have a team that, yes, as much as I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, is a better quarterback, a better offense, and I don't know if they have a better coach, but I also think they have a better defense than the Vikings had last year, and this could very easily be a 10-win team. I mean, they're gonna go into the season. They're gonna place. They got games against the Dolphins, Titans, Raiders, Cowboys, Vikings, Chiefs, Bears, Jets, Lions, Ravens, Packers, Patriots, Bills. Like, there's some games there, man. They could do it. I mean, if they can
Yeah,
beat the Titans, they can beat. I mean, hell, this team's good enough. They can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. We saw them do it last year. Like, I think that they're a 10-win team, and really, I've been talking about how good the offense is, but the ADPs of these guys, and the main reason is that guy right there in blue. Justin Herbert, QB7, coming off the board with the ADP of 6.7. And then Austin Eckler, RB2 overall in fantasy football, ADP of 19.0. Keenan Allen, wide receiver 19. Mike Williams, wide receiver 28. Quentin Johnston, wide receiver 40. And then Gerald Everett, tight end 16, cracking the list of the top 200. So it really is this star-studded offense, but there's no depth pieces around them. I mean, you've seen some of these other teams where we talk about backup running backs or backup wide receivers. No, it's Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnston, and then, of course, Gerald Everett's in there. But what can you do? How do you feel about the ADPs of these guys? I'll tell you right now, I think QB7 is too low for Justin Herbert. I think it's too low.
If it is that low, it's because he doesn't do much on the ground. I mean, QB7, that's interesting. I had him higher than that.
Yeah, I mean,
QB7, for all intents and purposes, well, no, that's not true. QB8 is Trevor Lawrence. And I feel like somewhere in between 6 and 7 is filled. So where is Herbert?
I have Herbert as my QB4.
Okay.
I have him 4.
Patrick, Josh, Burrow, Herbert,
Jalen, Herbert, Burrow.
Wait, hold on.
Jalen 3.
Oh, so you got Herbert above Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. Yeah, he's one of your guys, all right.
He's one of my guys. And while I say that, these guys are in the same tier. And I bet if you put me in fantasy football drafts with the number 4 pick over and over and over again this offseason, I'd get a combination of both of them. I mean, the reality is they're that close to me, but for the sake of him being my guy, I'm leaning Justin Herbert when it comes down to the tie. And I don't know, man. I don't know. I really like Justin Herbert this year. And really the reason why is I know that there's a discount on Justin Herbert. We've seen there be a discount. Unfortunately, you're not giving me a discount on Justin Herbert in Dynasty. But we've seen a discount in some Dynasty leagues because last year, with the injuries and some of the other things, unfortunately, Justin Herbert was QB 15 in fantasy football points per game. But it seems like people really forgot the fact that the year before, he was number 2 overall at the quarterback position, only behind Josh Allen. He was ahead of Patrick Mahomes. He was ahead of Joe Burrow in fantasy football points per game. So people forgot that. He threw for 5,000 yards as a sophomore in the NFL. And then last year with the torn labrum and the broken ribs, threw for 4,750 yards. So, I mean, you would assume healthy, he's cracking 5,000 again. But I don't know, man. People are doubting Justin Herbert. I think they'll pay for it this year. I think he's going to light up some fantasy football scoreboards for you guys and potential league winner for you this year, because I really do think I've said it on the show a couple times. I said it on other videos. He's a dark horse for me to win the MVP in the NFL.
I mean, I'm definitely not going to doubt the possibility of that happening. So, I mean, I guess we'll just have to take a wait and see approach with Justin Herbert. He is one of the top guys for sure, though. I do believe in that. And ain't nobody getting a discount from War when it comes to Justin Herbert.
I wanted some. I was trying to give you Dak in a first and Dak and something to go get Justin Herbert this offseason because I really wanted that the Goldilocks backfield of Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. I really wanted that as my 2 QBs in Superflex. But
that would be a nice little duo. The long
it would be nice.
Yeah.
But you won't give it to me. But it's fine. It's fine. I'll just bank on Bryce Young turning into who I think he is. But that's a debate for another day. Now, I do want to talk about these wide receivers. I mean, let's touch on Austin Eckler really quickly because Austin Eckler is just Austin Eckler, right? Like at this point, do we think he's a top 5 back this year?
I think here's what I think, and I was thinking about this as we were looking at this list. I think that the gap between the number one running back, and I don't want to put a ranking on a second number. I feel like it's a big jump. I feel like there's not a lot of separation between the top guys. I mean, yeah, Eckler's going to have some monster weeks. Who's number one? Freaking Bijan.
CMC is number one.
Look, CMC,
Bijan's 3.
Eckler, Bijan, who JT 4.
Number 4 is Nick Chubb.
Whoa. Surprising.
Yeah.
I feel like there's not a ton of, and I feel like a part of that too is just the continued devaluation of the running back position. Maybe I'm starting to be impacted by it because it just doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of like. I have a theory. Like now, I would never trade an elite wide receiver for an elite running back. That's just bad practice for me.
No, I think the only way you do that, and the only reason you do that in Dynasty. Keep in mind, we're talking Dynasty. I know that we talk some redraft on other videos, but we're this for Dynasty purposes, like it just doesn't make sense. The only reason that I would ever do it is if the wide receiver is older and you need a running back because you are in a competitive window and like pushing for a championship. Like that's probably the only way. And an example of that would be like, let's say your running backs are like, let's say you have Ramondre Stevenson and Josh Jacobs. Let's say those are your running backs. And now you have the uncertainty of Josh Jacobs. And then Ramondre Stevenson, obviously they just have the Zeke signing there. So that, takes a little bit of a hit, but let's say you have a, on your roster, let's say you have like a Devontae Adams. We just talked about him. If you can send Devontae over for Austin Eckler, in that situation, I'd do it. Assuming you have the depth at the wide receiver position to be able to trade away Devontae Adams. But I think it's got to be a competitive move and a move that you make to go all in on a championship. And that should really be the only time that you're trading for running backs. Really, other than that, like you should be trying to, in my opinion, down tier your running backs and get additional draft capital and then replenish those running backs with the draft capital that you gain while still keeping that. Like, for example, this offseason, you probably could have traded Josh Jacobs down early this offseason, right after the finish of him finishing as like the RB3. You could have traded Josh Jacobs for like Javonte Williams and got 2 seconds thrown in that deal as well. And with those 2 seconds, you could have taken Zach Charbonnet and Tank Bigsby. And now you have Javonte Williams, Zach Charbonnet, Tank Bigsby, and you gave up Josh Jacobs. That's the only time that I'm doing it. I'm trading, I'm down tiering, I'm getting the running back or I'm getting the draft pick value, and then I'm doing that. That's the only time. And then obviously if I'm rebuilding, if you play the running back position, I'm trading you. I'm not even rostering any.
I would do it if I had a surefire wide receiver 2, and I was in a competitive window, like you said, and in addition to that wide receiver 2, had an ascending wide receiver, like in one of my flex spots. Like for example, I have a team where I have T. Higgins, JJ, DJ Moore, and JSN. I think we both agree. We think JSN is gonna be better. I know that's later in the video. He'll be fine.
JSN's that dude. I think he's a dude, man.
So I mean, on that team, would I trade T. Higgins for Eckler? I would need Eckler in some, and like a small piece. I would need Eckler in a small piece just because Eckler could be done. Like, let's be realistic here.
Next year.
T. Higgins ain't going nowhere. So, I mean, yes, I need Eckler and a piece for T. Higgins. I mean, I would need, if I'm giving up T. Higgins. So,
it's interesting.
That's like I wouldn't trade a wide receiver 1. I wouldn't trade any wide receiver 1 for the best running back.
Yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, man, like if you took Dynasty RB1 Bijan Robinson and you took Dynasty wide receiver 1 Justin Jefferson, you're not making that swap. You're not doing it.
No.
Like it's just not. But if you have Bijan Robinson and you can swap him for Justin Jefferson, you're pressing accept every time, or at least you should be.
Uh, if I have
But
Devontae Adams and I'm trading him for Bijan, I would think about it.
oh yeah, you should. I mean, you would. I would do that. I would smash
Yeah.
accept that shit. But
Yeah.
I do want to talk about the Chargers receivers because there's three of them right here. And they all kind of are like in their own tier, right? Like Keenan's wide receiver 19, Mike Williams wide receiver 28, QJ wide receiver 40. What do you make of the receiving core? Is that how you view it? Keenan 1, Mike 2, QJ flex.
I don't like Mike Williams. He's on a not my guy list with Cortland Sutton. Keenan, I would love if I could just plug Keenan in as like a wide receiver 3 on my team. That'd be awesome. QJ, we'll see. He's a wide receiver, a rookie wide receiver. I need to see him perform. I don't even like these guys being ranked the rookie wide receiver unless you are obviously that dude. Like at this point, I think the two guys I trust the most that were drafted, Zay Flowers, JSN. Those are the two guys I trust. Zay Flowers just passed the eye test, and JSN, I've heard nothing. Not only has he passed the eye test, like you've been hearing about his feats all off season. So
Unfortunately, the wrist surgery that he's gonna have, and he'll miss some time to start the year, but nothing crazy. In Dynasty, it doesn't matter too if he misses the first 2 or 3 weeks.
nah, not
But
yeah.
but to me, JSN's one of those guys. The other one's Jordan Addison. I had Addison and JSN as my wide receiver 1, my wide receiver 2 in the class.
Addison hasn't been able to do much this offseason.
Um, in preseason action that he had, preseason week 1, he looked good. He was passing the eye test there. He looked real good. But yeah, I mean, there's been some injury stuff and some off the field stuff that has obviously been things that have been going on. But I think the talent's there nonetheless. I think it still. I haven't changed my opinion. They're wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and then I don't hear what I'm not saying. I like Zay, but Zay's my wide receiver 4. He's been my wide receiver 4. Just don't hear what I'm not saying. I like Zay. I just think he's in the same
Don't
tier as QJ.
don't let Brandon find out you said that.
He knows, he knows. But anyways, let's talk about these Kansas City Chiefs, man. They are projected to win the division. I don't think that's a surprise considering that these guys are Super Bowl champs. But 11 and a half wins war. Last year, they won 14. Is this 11 and a half? Is it too low?
Yeah. I was just gonna say they should have put it at 13 and a half, to be honest. The Chiefs are so good that it's kind of boring talking about them. Do I think they're gonna get 11, beat 11? Yes. Yes. I mean, 12, 13, 14, 15 wins. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this team is, I mean, they're the defending Super Bowl champs, man. They got the best player in the NFL playing the quarterback position for him. Like, and not only that, like, probably what? I'm not familiar with where he was on the top 100 list this year for the NFL, voted by NFL players, but I would assume that you would say Travis Kelce's the top 25 player in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah. That team's just so good. Just let's just put up the damn list.
ADPs. I mean, there's a lot of guys. So
Yeah.
it's a lot, man. There's like 8 of them.
Oh,
So these are
Lord.
all the guys. Pat Mahomes being drafted QB1. Kelsey's being drafted tight end 1. No surprises there. Isaiah Pacheco then off the board as RB28. Sky Moore, wide receiver 1 for the Chiefs off the board. Wide receiver 45. Kadarius Toney, wide receiver 50. Jerick McKinnon. I just typo on that name. I spelled his name wrong there. But Jerick McKinnon, RB41, Rashee Rice, wide receiver 62, and then Marquez Valdez Scantling, wide receiver 64. So they have 8 guys in the top 165 players off the board. Clearly, drafters don't know who the hell to draft at the wide receiver position for them. It looks like the hunch that everybody's going with is that it's Sky Moore's opportunity to take that wide receiver 1 job on this team. What are your thoughts on this wide receiver room with Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, Rashee Rice, and MVS?
Oh man, it's just a big club. It's almost like having a running back by committee, but for wide receiver. MVS, let's just well, let's throw MVS out there. Nobody cares about him. Nobody
Just a
likes
deep threat.
him. Yeah, nobody likes him. Let's Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney. Kadarius, I'm throwing Kadarius off to the side too. He's an occasional threat. So I think this really comes down between Rashee Rice and Sky Moore. And oh man, you just never know, man. The Chiefs, they're the type of team that they could even like curveball you out of nowhere and just trade for some type of like stud receiver. Like you never know with them, man. I mean, of the pieces they have, like right now, to me, technically, the Chiefs don't have a wide receiver. That's how I'm looking at it. And it's going to be a battle royale, and whoever's left standing on top, that's who's going to be the Chiefs wide receiver. Um, but I think if they had a choice, it would be Sky or it would be Rashid. So those are the guys they use draft capital on. So I
Yeah,
think they clearly will want one of those guys to win the matchup.
I mean, I think if I'm making my bet, I'm making my pick. I think it's Sky. Sky's my choice to be the wide receiver 1. Um, how valuable that wide receiver 1 is, I don't know, but I think he's my choice to be the wide receiver 1. At the end of the day, though, uh, there's a running joke on this channel. Guys in these drafts that I've been doing on underdogs, they keep making fun because they want me to draft Kadarius Toney, and I just will not do it. Will not draft Kadarius Toney. I think Rashee Rice will be the wide receiver 2 on this roster, maybe even the wide receiver 1 on this roster by the end of the season. But I think it's Sky and Rashee. Toney, like you said, he's an occasional threat at times, but he's pretty gadgety to me. There's nothing about his game that screams good wide receiver. Like there's nothing about his game that says that. In fact, I would not be surprised, and this is probably let me not. I
No,
was gonna
do
say
it. Do it.
I
Do
was
it.
okay. I would not be surprised if MVS is a better fantasy option than Kadarius Toney by the end of the year. Like I really wouldn't. There's a real
I
solid
changed my
chance.
mind. You shouldn't have did that. I
There's a
changed my
real
mind.
real solid chance here that MVS has more receiving yards than Kadarius Toney by the end of the year.
It's possible because at any time, Kadarius Toney can go to jail. So
He's probably in my Twitter DMs right now because we're live on Twitter, so he's probably in there right now trying to cuss me
yeah,
out. So,
probably.
anyways, um, that's really how I feel about the roster. I mean, we talked about it too. We don't got to go too much into the rest of this because it's pretty straightforward. But you know, Mahomes QB1, right? Like we can agree
Yeah,
that's where you're drafting him.
yeah,
Kelsey tight end 1. Don't overthink it. I mean, it's the same thing, right? And then
yeah.
Isaiah Pacheco, RB28. How do you feel about him being valued there? I mean, he's being valued as a low end RB3 for your rosters.
The fact that they have Javante only 3 spots ahead of him. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, it's disgusting. It's disgusting to be honest. So Pacheco, I'm fine with Pacheco's spot. I'm not fine with Javante's spot. So
All right. Well, I think I don't know, man. I think sorry, I'm actually just reading. I have something in my eye. I've had something in my eye this whole fucking time, man. But I think Isaiah Pacheco is being drafted fine. I mean, it's honestly if you play in a PPR league, like you probably don't really want to roster Isaiah Pacheco anyways, because what did he do for us last year? I know I was talking about, they finally have a guy and whatever, but like when you look at what he did on a points per game standpoint, like 7.9 fantasy points per game, like that's not breaking the bank. Um, you go and look at the back half of the season, which is where he was actually better. So let's cut out the first half where he wasn't even the starter yet. You get to the back where he is the starter, running back 16 on the week, 15, 17, 28, 17, 19. Uh, he's a guy. He's a guy.
That's all he is, a guy, like a human being. That's all he is.
Yeah, I'm not going above and beyond for Pacheco. It is what it is. If and you still didn't tell me, if you have to pick a Chiefs wide receiver, you're picking.
Oh man, you had to bring me back in it too. I'm picking Rasheed Rice.
I knew that's where you were leaning. That's why I wanted you to say it. I knew it.
Yeah,
Anyways,
picking Rasheed
um,
Rice.
I'm going Sky Moore. So take it how you will. Neither of us went Tony though. This is an anti-Tony show. Um, so when it's all said and done, we did just cover the AFC West. That was a lot better than the AFC South. I will say that.
It sure
Um,
hell was.
so let's get over to the NFC. We got these four teams to talk about real quick.
This should
Um,
be even funner.
yeah, this is the first team. They're projected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL with 4.5 wins.
Woo!
4.5. This is when you think of Caleb Williams, this is one of the jerseys that you start to picture him in, and it's the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray, he's on this picture, but how much is he going to play this year? We still don't know. I hope he plays a lot though, because I like Kyler Murray. I know a lot of people don't, but 4.5 wins. War. How do we feel about this team? I, I think at 4.5 wins, I'm just betting the over.
Yeah, I can see this team winning 5 wins. That's besides the point. So let's use this time to talk about something a little more interesting, shall we?
Okay.
Uh,
They had 4 wins last year, by the way.
let's say that they have 4 wins again. Let's say they're the worst team in the NFL with a chance to draft Caleb. What happens to Kyler?
Um, you know, I hope that Rich Gannon and the guys over there, I think it's what is his name, Ozzy something, whatever. He was a front office member for the Titans. Now he's the GM over there in Arizona. I hope they pick up the phone. They call Minnesota and they say, "Hey, you want Kyler Murray?" And we say, "Hell yes, we want Kyler Murray." And then they send us Kyler Murray. I hope that's what
Give
happens.
up on Kirk like that, huh?
Oh yeah, for Kyler Murray. And sorry, I know that's probably disrespectful to what Kirk Cousins has done for us. But at the end of the day, he hasn't given me one of those Super Bowl rings. And so if you can't do it, get the hell out of here.
So you're saying that if Caleb gets drafted, your concern isn't going to be will Kyler be a QB1 for another team? It just won't be for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean, and I said earlier this offseason that the value of Kyler Murray in your dynasty leagues right now is despicable. I mean, like what you can get Kyler Murray for is disgusting. Like he's being so undervalued, and I know I don't want this to turn into like the Kyler Murray show, but um, let me just tell you where he's being ranked right now, and this is on Keep Trade Cut. Um, he is being ranked in tier, the same tier as these three quarterbacks: Daniel Jones, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love.
Oh, Kyler.
Disgusting. Yes, disgusting.
Now you know how I feel about Javante. Keep going.
It is disgustingly low because when you look at Kyler Murray and you say, okay, what does Kyler Murray do when he's on the football field? And I get it. Everybody has the Call of Duty jokes. They have all the other bullshit that they talk about Kyler Murray. He's immature. He's yada, yada. When he plays football, he fucking scores fantasy points. Like 2020, QB3 fantasy points per game. 2021, QB4 fantasy points per game. Last year, even while injured and missing some football games, QB number 7 fantasy points per game. And we're drafting him now in these dynasty rankings that the community is voting on. The community voted on these. This is where they're putting him. QB 15 with Daniel Jones, Dak Prescott, and Jordan Love. Those motherfuckers aren't going to be scoring the points that Kyler Murray can score. It's disrespectful. And you think that Kyler Murray, again, if they draft Caleb Williams and then Kyler Murray, gets put in limbo, I bet his price dips even further. But guess what? They're not trading Kyler Murray to a team that wants to put Kyler Murray on the bench. The team who's getting Kyler Murray wants to start him and make him their franchise quarterback. He's being paid $200 million. You think that shit just goes away? The next team that gets him has to pay that contract. That's starting quarterback money.
I mean, it's not like they would be replacing Kyler because he's a bad quarterback. They would just be replacing him because they feel like Caleb is like a generational quarterback. Nobody ever said Kyler was generational.
New front office, new head coach. When you have a new front office and a new head coach, they like to go get their guy. You bring in a rookie quarterback that, again, he's being touted as this generational prospect. People are putting him in the same breath. Some people are putting him as actually a tier above what Trevor Lawrence is or was when he was coming out, and we know how they talked about Trevor. And you pay him rookie quarterback money. You get to trade away that $200 million that you paid Kyler Murray. Now you can actually build an offense around, because Arizona had went in pretty heavy and tried to, get in on a contending window. It didn't work out for them. They spent a lot of money getting D-Hop, paying Kyler, paying JJ Watts, doing all that stuff. It didn't work. Now they got to kind of rebuild it. And even though Kyler is 26 years old, he's young as hell for the quarterback position. He's just one of those guys that, like, if they have the chance to get Caleb, they'll do it. Is there a situation where Arizona could do what your team did this year, War? Where they're like, you know what? We are going to stick with Kyler, but we're going to trade this first for a bag, and we're going to get somebody's entire goddamn future for Caleb Williams. They could do that too.
Yeah, they could. I wouldn't be surprised if they did do that.
So, anyways, that's the whole spiel on Kyler. So let's not talk too much about Kyler, but he is being drafted in your redraft leagues and these best ball leagues as QB 25 off the board for 2023. So if he plays some football games this year, you're kind of getting a steal down there at QB 25, because the guys in that range with him are those Jimmy Garoppolo's, let's see who else it is. It's Jimmy Garoppolo's, Brock Purdy's, CJ Stroud, Sam Howell's, Mac Jones. Like, that's who you're drafting him with. So if he plays 10 games, you probably get a value out of him. But then he has these other three guys. Hollywood Brown, I feel like being drafted as wide receiver 31 is definitely a value to me. I feel like last year when he was the wide receiver one for the Arizona Cardinals and was being I understand he had Kyler Murray throwing him the football, so it's going to come down to who is throwing him the football this year. It's probably going to be a mixture of Colt McCoy and Kyler Murray. But when Hollywood Brown was the wide receiver one for the Arizona Cardinals with no DeAndre Hopkins in the lineup, he was scoring hella fantasy points. Like,
Yes.
and you remember, like week 3, he was the wide receiver 3 overall. Week 4, the wide receiver 11. Week 5, wide receiver 10. Like, he was a wide receiver 1 for your fantasy football teams for a month of last
He was
season
looking
without.
like a bona fide league winner.
Yeah, so I think wide receiver 31. I mean, it's kind of a value if he does that again. I know it's a small sample size.
He's not, though. Not without Kyler there.
No, you don't think so?
No, who's going to be their quarterback?
McCoy?
Whew. Yeah, he ain't doing that.
Do you think Kyler plays this year? I think he plays.
No, I don't think
No?
he plays, because part of that is because it was a part of my plan in one of our leagues, for me to trade Tua to get Kyler, just for me to like tank. But I mean, he might.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the Arizona Cardinals. Other than those two guys, I mean, other than Hollywood, they have James Conner. I'm personally not drafting Rondell Moore.
Me either.
But I think James Conner's a value too. He's being drafted running back 27. If they lean on James Conner, which I think they will, especially if what you're saying, where you think that Kyler Murray's not playing. Last year he was good. He was good. I want to say he was putting up top 12. Let me see. James Conner last year, fantasy points per game was, running back 9 in fantasy points per game. You're getting him as running back 27.
Yeah, I mean, James Conner is always a pleasure to have on your team until he gets hurt.
Yeah, I agree. And last year he played 13 games, so he didn't play the full year for you. But anyways, let's not keep talking about these Arizona Cardinals. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams. The Los Angeles Rams, they are projected to finish third in this division with a projected win total of 6.5 wins. They are coming off of a season in 2022 where they won 5 games. So they're projecting them to win 2 more from what they did last year. Do you think that is accurate or not so much?
Man, the motherfuckers winning 5 games again. They ain't finna do nothing. They ain't finna do nothing. Los Angeles Rams, they had their time in the sun talking about fuck them picks. I bet they wish they had them picks now.
Bet you wish you did.
Like, yeah, I don't see. I think about it all the time. Like, when I do bring my mind to think about the Rams, which I haven't done much of until today, just don't see anything. Cooper Kupp getting injured every 5 seconds. Stafford, they kind of don't even want him on the team. They asked him to take a pay cut. He said no. They don't even have a running back. They're trash. And then all they got left is Aaron Donald. After this year might be so depressing that he might even just be like, I'm out. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think it's going to go too good for the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you,
They
man.
might look. You know how for the Raiders, you said a dark horse to be in the Caleb sweepstakes. I think the Rams are a dark horse to be in the Caleb sweep. Wait, they don't have a pick, do they?
Let's see. Los Angeles Rams. Because how would that feel if you said F them picks and then
Oh man,
2020? It would be 2024 draft picks. They have. Okay, the Rams currently hold their own first round pick in 2024.
okay, yes. So I mean, that's another dark horse for the Caleb Williams sweepstakes right there.
Yeah, so lucky they still have that. Lucky.
Lucky,
Um,
lucky.
but I mean, when you look at the team, man, like Cooper Kupp is being drafted as wide receiver 4, Matthew Stafford QB 20, Cam Akers RB 20, Tyler Higbee tight end 15, and then Van Jefferson wide receiver 63. So a pretty short list here for the Los Angeles Rams. Really, the only guy that I think is a bona fide stud is Cooper Kupp. I know you're kind of not feeling Cooper Kupp right now, are you?
I'm not feeling his health. If he's healthy, I'm feeling him. If he's not healthy, I'm not feeling him.
Fair enough. I mean, I think it goes without saying when he's on the field, he dominates. But he's being drafted as wide receiver 4, so I would assume that's putting him behind just off memory. It's putting him behind JJ, Chase, and probably Tyreek. That's probably the only ones.
Yeah.
And so, which I would take all 3 of those guys over Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting list. How do you feel about Stafford being valued as QB 20?
In
Just
my
right?
personal opinion, Stafford's down there. To me, Stafford is in the same category as Garoppolo and all those guys.
Yeah.
He's washed. He's washed. I wouldn't even be. He's on that list with I'd take Kenny Pickett over him. Like he's like he's one of those guys where if he's my QB2, I'm not comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was I mean, it's just unfortunate, man, because I'm looking at the roster and I'm like, this is a team that was in a Super Bowl, what, 2 years ago? A year
Mhm.
ago? Like, this offense is so unflattering. Like, it is disgusting. And their offensive line is really bad. But it's really Cooper Cup and really nobody else that I care about. I mean, I think Higbee, you throw up when you press draft, but he could be a value. I mean, last year he was solid in spurts. It just wasn't anything crazy. I mean, he's being drafted, like I said, right here is tight end 15. But when we go back and we look at the game logs for last year, just looking at, I mean, from a fantasy points per game standpoint, he was tight end 15, so it's right on par. But if you look at the game log, and that's what I'm pulling up right now, um, there were stretches like week 16, tight end 2, week 15, tight end 9, week 11, tight end 9, week 10, tight end 5, week 4, tight end 4, week 5, tight end 8, like week 2, tight end 5. Like there's a lot of good weeks. It's just the bad weeks were tight end 51, tight end 52. Like it was bad. So I don't know when you start him, but if he's going to have some weeks. The thing is that there's no other receiving option there. So whether it be Van Jefferson, whether it be Tyler Higbee, whether it be Puka Nakua, like it could be somebody who has to perform as a tight end. I mean, the second receiving option.
That team washed.
Fair enough. I hate Cam Akers. I
Yeah,
don't.
like I'm surprised he's still on the team. Like that. That's the one fascinating thing about the Rams is the fact like Cam Akers is still on the team. The dude quit on the team and he's still there.
And now
That's
he's a starting
crazy.
back. Yeah, it's crazy.
Like who would have thought he would have outlasted Daryl Henderson? I don't know. Maybe Kareem Hunt will go there. But I don't know. I think that team's going to be tanking for Caleb. The more I sit here and think about it,
Zach Evans could take running back starting snaps this year for him,
he very well could. I expect it.
or
Unless they
Kyron
saw,
Williams could.
I don't expect that. But yeah,
Anyways,
I'm
let's get
flattered
off.
about
Let's get off of this gross fest because the team that we're going to talk about next is actually a good football team with good fantasy football options. So that's going to be the Seattle Seahawks. They do have a projected win total of 9.5 wins. They're coming off of a season last year where they won 9, so they're expecting them to take a little bit of a step forward. Um, the reality is they loaded up some players on the offensive side of the ball, added Jackson Smith and Jigba, Zach Charbonnet this offseason, and then obviously retained Kenneth Walker, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Noah Fant, and also retained Geno Smith. I know that was a 1-year deal that they ended up having some success with. So, how do you feel about the Seattle Seahawks this year and that 9.5 win total?
they feel like a 10-win team to me. I just like their offense. Defense seems like it's ascending. I just like what they got going on. I feel like 10 wins sounds about right.
Yeah, I agree, and I think playing in a division with the Cardinals and the Rams, you could find 4 wins pretty quickly. So I think 9.5 is a good line, but there's a chance they go over. But we were talking about some of those players already, and you see the ADPs here. Geno Smith being drafted off the board as QB 15, DK Metcalf off the board as wide receiver 15, Kenneth Walker running back 17, JSN wide receiver 32, Tyler Lockett wide receiver 33. So back to back for those guys, and then Zach Charbonnet running back 33. How do you feel about any of these guys? Does anybody in here stick out particularly as a value to you, or is there anybody in here that's like overpriced?
Um, Tyler Lockett is a value, to be honest. I understand JSN's time is coming. Geno Smith, I think we shared this earlier in the offseason. Neither one of us necessarily trust what we're going to get from Geno Smith in the second time going out there for the Seahawks. They're starting QB. but I love the wide receiver group for this team. Running backs, not so much. I think individually, you'll get big performances from whoever is at running back for the Seahawks. But the problem is that you don't know who that's going to be. So it's hard to invest in any of them because, it's just up in the air. But I can tell you right now, I think all three of their wide receivers produce. And I mean, I think they all finish like, would it be crazy for all of them to finish in different areas of wide receiver twos? Would that be crazy? Would that be unprecedented?
I don't know. I mean, it could happen. Um, I think it's happened before, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't Tom Brady support Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans all in the top 25?
I think he did.
So it's possible. I mean, you're putting Geno in the same conversation as Tom Brady right there, but
Yeah, I know that gives me a little hesitation there. That gives me some hesitation.
I
I
do
just
think
think
the reality is, War, that like I don't I've been on record in the past saying like I don't trust Geno. You know, think that last year was a facade. I've since changed my opinion actually. So I'm not saying that I think Geno Smith is elite, but I think he's going to replicate what he did last year this year. I think he is. Um, and you add the weapons that you add to the offense this year, it's gonna happen. And if you haven't watched the video that I released last night I put out a quarterback values, and Geno Smith is in that video. I think he's undervalued for fantasy football. Um, and I never thought I'd be going to bat in a million years for Geno Smith, but here I am because being drafted as QB. Where is he at in our? I think he's even more undervalued on Sleeper, because in Sleeper he's being drafted as QB. No, he's being drafted as QB 15 in Sleeper, but he's personally my QB 12 this year, and last year he finished as QB 9, and so I'm actually giving him a downtick from where he finished last year. The scary thing is that if Jackson Smith and Jigba is who you and I think he is, and if Geno does take that step forward because of Jackson or because of being in second year of the offense, could Geno finish in the top 5? Holy hell! I guess maybe. It's crazy to think about. It's so crazy to think about. I'm assuming you disagree.
it's not going to happen.
But if he
Top five is
replicates,
not going to happen. Him replicate what he did last year, okay, I'll give you that. But that's about it. That's all I'll give you.
if he replicates what he did last year, he's he's a top 10 quarterback, and QB 15 is, if you're getting a top 10 quarterback at QB 15, it's undervalued. It's plain and simple.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing that I really want to talk about, because we could talk about the wide receivers. I think DK Metcalf is being a little overdrafted. I'm not gonna lie. He's being drafted as wide receiver 15. I don't know if he finishes in the top 15 wide receivers this year in fantasy football. I think the passing pie has just gotten a little bit smaller. But I think when it's all said and done at the end of the year, JSN is the wide receiver 2 on the roster. But Tyler Lockett could still be a value at wide receiver 33. So I agree with all of that. I think the only thing that I want to talk about is Kenneth Walker being drafted as running back 17. How do you feel about Kenneth Walker? And then obviously we have to talk Zach Charbonnet as well because of that.
Like I said, I'm not trying to be married to anybody in the Seahawks. Seahawks backfield. I mean, how do I feel about them? Would I want to roster them? Yes. Yes, because you get big potential just out of running back. It's like the 49ers. It doesn't matter who the running back is. You're going to get points out of that player regardless. But the risk you are in danger of running when you get any of those guys is who's going to be hurt, who's going to be playing. You don't know. That position
Yeah,
is just cursed on that team to a degree. So
it's tough, man. But let's talk about the last team here. I can tell you and I are running out of gas. Uh,
I think I'm doing well considering people said I do have my hand on my doing all this other stuff all the time. I think I'm doing pretty good.
well, let's talk about those Niners, man. We talked about them at the top of the show, but you see the starting quarterback there for them in the top right. They are projected to win 10.5 games. A team that is not going to give Trey Lance a chance, but they won 13 games last year. How do you feel about the 10.5 line?
I think that's fair. I see them in the Seahawks as neck and neck. Maybe 49ers like one tick above. So if I could see the Seahawks winning 10 games, I could see the 49ers winning 11 games.
That means these lines are pretty tight.
Yeah. Yeah, I think these lines are pretty accurate too. I think they're pretty spot on.
Yeah, I mean, and some of those players, they also have a long list of guys. I mean, like we've said, as you get to the teams that are projected to win more games, you get more fantasy football options. But ADP wise, they got Christian McCaffrey being drafted as the RB1, Brock Purdy as the QB 23, Debo Samuel as the wide receiver 17, George Kittle as the tight end 4, Brandon Ayuk wide receiver 26, Trey Lance QB 33, and Elijah Mitchell RB 43. So how do we feel about this list? Are we? I mean, we're pretty much at this point we're crossing Trey Lance off this list, right?
Yeah, he's off. He's off.
Okay, so how do we feel about the rest of the list? And how do you feel about Brock as QB 23?
Yeah, I don't like it. I think he needs to be higher on the list. I think he needs to be, quite honestly, closer to Geno. So he needs to be closer to 15 than 23. He's definitely above Matthew Stafford. I don't know where people get off writing off the next Tom Brady. I don't get it.
I was gonna bring it up. You brought it up. If you didn't, I was because you
Yeah,
said you put him in the same conversation as Tom.
yeah. I don't know where people get off thinking the next Tom Brady is QB 23. So we're gonna have to you're gonna have to prove some more people wrong. They think it's just a fluke. We talking about this is three TD Purdy. Every game he played, 3 touchdowns. So
I think it's irresponsible. I think it's irresponsible. I would not be putting him in the same conversation as Tommy, but it is what it is, man. I think he's properly. In fact, if you want me to be honest, I think he's maybe a little high. I'm not in on Brocky, but I do not have a big gripe with the Christian McCaffrey RB1. I mean, obviously he needs to be in that conversation. Personally, to me, I think Austin Eckler is ranked my RB1 for 2023, but CMC is my RB2. Then the only thing that I really have a issue with is the Debo Samuel rank, man. Wide receiver 17 just feels way too high.
yeah, this might be a fall off year for Debo, man. I hate to say
I
it.
think I think we've already had a fall off year. The problem is I think Debo might be one of those guys that was a onesie kind of guy where he had the one good season and then we gave him I get where you went with that one. Yeah, he's a 1 year guy, man. He had one good season and he hasn't been shit since. That's just kind of been the reality. Last year, wide receiver 28 in fantasy football points per game. God damn, this show is getting off the rails, man.
Debo Samuel's a onesie kind of guy.
I got the I got the one liners tonight.
Yeah, man, you do, man. This one's keeping me up, man.
Then I started talking about Debo Samuel's sleep attire.
I mean, yeah, man. Debo Samuel. Brad, put that list up one more time.
God damn. Um, Here you go.
All right. Brandon Ayuk should be higher than Debo Samuel.
I agree.
That's why I see that. I think everything else is fine. Elijah Mitchell, I don't know to argue one way or the other because he's always injured and he's a backup, but apparently he's going to be a utilized backup. So we'll see how that goes. I'm pretty sure they're going to want to preserve Christian McCaffrey as much as possible, which is why I agree with your Austin Eckler as the RB1. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know what's funny is actually when you look at the fantasy points per game, where Brandon Ayuk is being drafted right now, he actually finished in a points per game standpoint closer to where Debo is being drafted, and Debo actually is finished last year closer to where Ayuk is. So based on the numbers they put up last year, they should be swapped. But for some reason, drafters are choosing Debo over Ayuk. Um,
Name value.
I'm telling you, it's because he wears onesies. It's really that's the whole reason is the onesie thing, man. People got a thing for onesies. It's
Oh, man.
those onesie players, man. Anyways, um, that is the what was that? The NFC West? Yeah, that was the NFC West. Um,
Yeah.
so that is it for this show, man. We talked AFC West, NFC West. Uh, War, you got anything else in here before I get myself in any more trouble tonight?
Yeah, I don't want I don't want your actions to rub off on me, so I'm not gonna say nothing else.
I want us to have a
Go
show
grab
next
you
week.
a onesie. We'll be here. We'll be here next week.
I don't think we have anything else. I mean, obviously, last division will be talked about last or next time. It's going to be the Easts, so the AFC and the NFC Easts. Um, might be it's not going to be as bad as the Souths, but it'll be close.
Buckle up.
Buckle up, but then we'll be done, and then it'll be time for football season. So we'll really get to start talking some real football. We'll actually have stuff to talk about games instead of just
Yeah.
projecting. We'll actually get to react. So it'll be good to do. But I don't have anything else for you guys today. War and I will see you here next week. War, we are going to have to change our date though, because
Yes.
Wednesday night I will be on a flight to your city for our fantasy football draft
And I will be
at work.
at work.
But I
I
will
will
be
be
headed
at work.
to Las Vegas so I can have the draft of the century and take home that redraft championship. That's the goal. But anyways,
Hmm. We'll talk about a day off the air.
okay. We're getting out of here. We will see you guys on the next episode next week. This was the League FFB. This was Let's Talk Dynasty. Peace out, guys.